J.D. Pendleton, and today we're going to be making a Southern favorite, biscuits and gravy. Not just any biscuits and gravy. We're going to be making buttermilk biscuits and sawmill gravy without the sawdust. So come on, let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start making the biscuits. So what I've done is I've pulled my butter out of the freezer. I had it in there for about 20-25 minutes. Just kind of put it down amongst the ice cubes. And this is a 1/4 cup of butter. And we're just going to grate that. Now you can see now why I freeze it. Okay? And this helps to incorporate this into your biscuits without mixing too much. Now your hands are going to make this warm. Careful not to cut yourself here. There we go, a couple more scrapes. There we go, okay? Just going to get all that butter off of here. Look at that, nice shredded butter. This keeps you from overworking your biscuits. Okay? And to that we're also going to add another 1/4 cup of this butter flavored Crisco. You can use regular flavored Crisco as well. Or you can use all shredded butter if you like. But I'm just going to add a little bit of the butter flavored Crisco. I like my biscuits to be really flaky. Okay? Okay, and here we have a 1/4 cup of warm water, about 98 to 110 degrees. And I'm just going to put about a 1/2 thing of Fleischmann's yeast in there. Okay. We're going to give this yeast a stir. Okay, now to activate this, we're going to add a little bit of sugar. Oh, about a teaspoon will do. Then another stir. Okay, and we're just going to sit this aside and make sure that this is going to rise. This will get all foamy on top. It'll take about 2 minutes. Okay? Meanwhile, we've got our butter shredded, and we want to work with this quickly before it melts. If you want to, you can even put this back in the freezer. 1/4 cup of milk, and I'm using lactose-free milk. And here we just have all-purpose gold medal flour. We're going to be using a couple dashes of salt, 1 egg, 3½ teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and a little bit of my baking powder. I'm going to mix this with the milk, and that's how we're going to get our buttermilk flavoring. And you can use just straight up buttermilk if you like. So let's go ahead and toss in 2 heaping teaspoons of that. Okay. Smells good. And I use this because it's more shelf worthy. You know, it stays on the shelf a lot longer. Okay, there we go. Smells like buttermilk to me. Got nice and incorporated. We're just going to let this sit for a minute and let the powders of the buttermilk kind of meld with the milk. We don't like that gritty flavoring. So in a large bowl with our sifter, we're going to sift together our dry ingredients. Now that's going to be 2 cups of gold medal flour, and I always add an extra 1/4 cup. So that's 2 1/4 cups. Okay. See, that's just going to sift through there really nicely. To this, I'm going to add 2 or 3 dashes of salt, and that's all you need. The gravy's going to have plenty of salt in it, especially if you put sausage or some sort of meat in it. It usually will have enough salt. Okay? And then to this, we're going to add, here. To this, we're going to add 3½ teaspoons. 1, 2, 3, and here is our 1/2 teaspoons, and that's of baking powder. And then here we're just going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay? There we go. Now I just take this and I kind of mix it up here just a little bit. There we go. Doesn't take much. Look at that. That's already sifted. Now, a little bit of a stir. So to this, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of white sugar. And that's all we need for that. Give that another stir here. Now, my yeast is proofing just fine. So what I'm going to do, since that's working, and since I want to keep these ingredients fairly cool, I'm not going to warm this up. It's pretty much room temperature. I'll go ahead and add my yeast to my milk now. Okay? Just going to give that a bit of a stir. I'm going to take this egg, okay? I'm going to add the egg to my liquids. There we go. Oh, that was a double yolk. Did you see that? There you go. You know what? I don't know what that double yolk's going to do to the mix. So believe it or not, I'm going to remove it here, and I'll save it maybe for a pudding or something. This is probably, well, that would make number 11 or number 12 double yolks for me in the last couple of days. Almost every egg I've cracked has been a double yolk. And I'm getting them from the same store. These aren't from my chickens. Okay, so I've just mixed this. So I'm going to set that aside. Now what I'm going to do here is a very important step, okay? I'm going to add this butter, and I'm going to mix this butter in. Now I don't want to add it in very much here. Just kind of crunkle it around here. See how, I should have put this in the freezer. It's already kind of mixing together here. Separate this up a little bit. We're going to do the same thing with our butter flavored Crisco. Okay? This all together equals a half a cup. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this butter into our flour mixture until it resembles a really rough cornmeal texture. Just take a few minutes. Take long at all. See, it's already starting to crumble up. Just use one of these handy dandy pieces here. You can use a fork if you like. I use like a meat fork, one of those larger meat forks. That's good for doing this too, if you don't have one of these. Okay? So keep going until this resembles very coarse cornmeal. Would be the best way to describe it. I think that's incorporated enough there. Here you can see the texture that we're looking for. Nice coarse cornmeal pieces here. Okay? Make a well in the center again. Mix up that egg and that buttermilk. We need a half a cup of liquid plus the egg. We're just going to add about 3/4 of that, not all of it. And we're going to take our fork and we're just going to fluff it like so. Okay? Don't want to work it too much. A little more. See, I've still got a little bit left here. I might not need it all. You don't just want to dump all that liquid right in there. Okay, and this is going to hold together. I think just a little bit more here. Okay, there we go. It's starting to hold together. Nice. Right there's perfect. Okay? That is perfect. So we're not going to need this. We can save that for another batch. Now you can let these rolls raise, or you can just go ahead and make them into biscuits. And okay, so we don't want to overwork that dough, because when you overwork dough, it will become too glutinous. The glutens will kick in, and I know I'm normally a gluten-free chef, but this is for my family, and they love regular homemade biscuits, so I had to make something today. Now what I have here is is I have a good old fashioned, and you can tell mine's all stained and even has holes in it. Good old fashioned pastry cloth. If you don't have one of these, they also make like a pastry board. Okay? And we're just going to put just a little bit of flour. I mean, lightly flour it. Excuse me. Okay? Just want that lightly floured. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take our dough here. There we go. And remember, you don't want to overwork this. It looks a little crumbly now, but all you really want to do is just take a couple of turns with it. And this is it. Just fold it a couple of times. Okay? One more. That's it. That's all there is to making biscuits. Now what we're going to do here, a little flour on top, and we're going to roll these out. Okay, all we're going to do here is we're going to put a little bit of flour on our rolling pin, and we're going to roll these out to about 1 inch thick. Okay? That's it. We're going to dip our biscuit cutter here in the flour. And I just want to show you, I have 2 sizes of biscuit cutters. You can make the big ones, or you can make the little ones. You know what? I think I'm going to go for the bigger one. Okay? And you're going to drop these onto an ungreased cookie sheet. And we're going to finish doing this with all of them. And then when you come to the end, just give it a little bit of a fold, a little bit of flour here, pull it down just a little. Okay. Dip your ring in flour again. Finish baking off the dough, just like so. Don't overwork that flour. And this last one, I'll just kind of, there you go. Form it into a little bit of a biscuit there, and we'll just throw it right on top. Make them all kind of nice and even. Okay, and there you have it. These are ready to go into a 400-degree oven for about 12 minutes, 15 at the most. You want to start seeing just a little bit of golden brown here along the edges, and these will have puffed up. Now, because I use the yeast, you can go ahead and put these in the oven now, and they'll raise fine. But I'm going to go ahead and cover mine up, and I'm going to let them raise for about 35, 45 minutes. We'll see. And I'm going to let them raise just a little bit before I put mine in the oven. Okay, so I've let the biscuits raise for about 25-30 minutes in just about a 90 to 100 degree oven. And covered them with a towel like so, like this. Just slipped them in my oven, turn the oven back off, just let them raise there for a few minutes, okay? This is the result. Now what we're going to do is we brought these back out of the oven. The pan is still probably around 95 degrees. We're just going to keep them covered. And we're going to preheat the oven to 400 degrees. That's 400 degrees, and we're going to bake these for about 12 to 15 minutes. Until, like I said, until they're golden around the edges, okay? We'll see you in a minute. Now to make the Sawmill gravy, we're just going to simply add about 4 pieces of bacon to our pan here. And I've kind of rinsed these a little bit, put a little water on them so they'd sizzle up and get nice and crisp. This is turkey bacon, so it's not really going to make any bacon fat. But if we constitute the dry, brown, crusty stuff on the bottom of our pan with about a tablespoon of water, we're going to have to what is equivalent to some bacon fat. Or at least that flavoring that we're going to need for our Sawmill gravy. Now I'm just going to fry these up till they're nice and crispy, and then I'm going to crumble them. What I'm going to do here is we're going to add some chopped onions, part or all of a beef or chicken bouillon cube. I'm using beef. I'm going to use a half a cup of gluten-free flour. That's my mix. Or 3/4 of a cup of regular flour, okay? We're going to use 4 cups of milk. Oh, a little bit of salt. And some ground pepper here, okay? Now you can use sausage. If you use sausage, use less salt. Now an actual sawmill gravy actually includes cornmeal, real ground cornmeal. But I don't like that texture, so I'm not doing that. But if you'd like to make the real authentic sawmill gravy, be sure and add your onions, brown your roux for about 8 to 10 minutes, not too long. If you want a white gravy, don't brown it at all. But let it at least sit 10 minutes and rest 10 minutes before you cook it up, your roux up. That will help absorb, get rid of that gritty flour taste, especially when you're using gluten-free flours. Which has like tapioca and rice flours, and that's very gritty. You have to let that sit. If you're using regular flour, you have to let it sit as well. This is how you get rid of that gritty, floury taste that you get in gravies. Now my husband whips his gravy up in a blender, and we can do that as well. Other meats that you can add to this are sausage, and like I said, use less salt if you use sausage. Hamburger, dried beef and peas over toast are really good. And like I'm using here, crumbled bacon. So this recipe is very basic and you can very much change it, okay? Did you know if you use ham, chopped ham in your gravy, it's called red-eyed gravy? Okay, meanwhile, we're going to put our biscuits in the oven here. You can see they've raised. And we're going to bake these at 400 degrees for 12 minutes. Okay, we're going to remove our bacon. It's nice and crispy. We're going to place it here on a paper plate. And you can see here we have this bacon. It's turkey bacon, so it didn't make a lot of grease. So this is where I'm going to drop in my butter. And we're just going to kind of bring up that bacon flavoring right from the bottom of the pan. There we go. There we go. Just bringing it right off. This helps to clean the pan as well. Okay, let's turn the heat down a little bit more. Okay, and to this butter, I'm going to go ahead and add the onions. You could omit the onions if you like. We're just going to cook this down for, we're going to cook the onions for about 2 or 3 minutes. Just until they start to caramelize and get a little transparent. And meanwhile, I'm going to break up this bacon into small pieces. I'm just going to crumble it. Turkey bacon doesn't crumble as easy. It takes a little effort, still a little hot. Okay, once the onions have cooked up, I'm going to remove this from the heat and I'm going to let this cool for about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, I've just removed these biscuits from the oven. Of course, if I'd went a little thicker with the dough to 1.5 inches, I would have had thicker and I would have went with smaller biscuit cutter. I would have gotten taller biscuits. But I wanted mine more round because it's better for serving gravy on. Okay? So I'm going to put these in a basket so they'll finish cooking. I mean, I want to stop the cooking process and I don't want to burn them on the bottom. Okay? And by the way, I only ended up cooking these 8 minutes. Okay? That's all it took. Now meanwhile over here we have our onions and our butter, and it has calmed down here a little bit. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to add our flour. Remember, that's a 1/2 cup of gluten-free flours, or it's 3/4 of a cup of regular flour. Add a pinch of salt, not much. Okay, and we're just going to give this a stir. And we're going to add some pepper to this as well. Okay, now what we're going to do here is when we get this nice and smooth, we're going to turn our heat back on, medium high, and we're going to cook this gravy. You can see it's already brown from the baking drippings. And we're going to cook this gravy. This is a roux. We're going to cook this roux for about 8 minutes, just like this. This also gives this flour a chance to cook and meld in with the butter and get rid of that floury taste, okay? And we can add more salt and pepper in a minute when we add our milk, okay? Now remember, my grandmother used to say, when the gravy is popping circles the size of hog's eyes, your gravy is ready, okay? So that's how we're going to know when our gravy's ready. Okay? We're just going to keep browning this. Timing starts, it starts to really simmer like it's doing now. We're going to do this for about 8 minutes. The longer you cook it, the browner it will get. Keep going with it. Okay, we're almost done with our 8 minutes, and I've just added some freshly ground pepper to this. Okay, I think it's ready. So we're going to go ahead and add our milk. That was just 2 cups. Calls for 4. We're just going to do half that and see how it looks first. I'm using lactose-free milk. At this point, you can use 2% milk because the lactose enzymes in this milk will make the other half the milk lactose-free. Okay, we've added our other 2 cups of milk. We've added our bouillon cube in. Now we're just going to add our bacon bits back in. Give it a stir. Okay, now to plate this up, we're just going to grab a couple of our biscuits. We're going to split them in half here. Get us a little bit of butter. Butter these up a little bit here. Excuse me. Now tell me, who doesn't want a serving of Sawmill gravy over buttermilk biscuits? This is what my kids would call the bomb. Okay? This is Chef Janie Pendleton with my buttermilk biscuits and my sawdust gravy. Enjoy. This is John eating buttermilk biscuits and sawmill gravy.
Good.
Like that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.